Russia weaponizes stolen information with fake personas. Shortly after gaining access to the DNC network, and months before it released any materials, the GRU prepared infrastructure to leak stolen information. Consistent with prior influence campaigns, the GRU used multiple fake personas on social media platforms, including a persona known as, quote, Guccifer 2.0, close quote, and others associated with the fake outlet, quote, DC Leaks, close quote, to promote and disseminate its information, including by providing content in advance to media organizations and targeted U.S. persons. This influence campaign was used to promote the stolen documents and associated narratives, push back on early attribution of the attacks to the Russian government, and create plausible deniability for individuals who sought to use the stolen information. GRU operation of the DC Leaks site and related personas. To launch its influence operation, the GRU created a website, dcleaks.com, which was operational from June 2016 to March 2017. The GRU used this website and affiliated social media personas to promote and disseminate stolen documents from the DNC and the DCCC, while obscuring the GRU's involvement in the influence campaign. The DC Leaks website was registered by the GRU's Unit 26165 on April 19, 2016, the day after the GRU had gained access to the DNC and before any documents had been exfiltrated from the DCCC or DNC. Redacted. DC Leaks was not the GRU's first attempt to create a fake outlet related to the U.S. election. In fact, 1 week prior, around the same time it had first gained access into the DCCC network, the GRU had also tried to register the website, quote, electionleaks.com, close quote. At that time, the GRU was only in possession of stolen emails from campaign officials and others associated with the Democratic Party, including John Podesta. This information indicates that the GRU had been anticipating a leak campaign while it was still in the early stages of its intrusion. The GRU launched the DC Leaks website publicly on June 8, 2016. On the website, the GRU falsely presented DC Leaks as an independent, transparency-focused platform run by Americans for Americans. For example, on its About page, DC Leaks stated that its, quote, aim is to find out and tell you the truth about U.S. decision-making process as well as about the key elements of American political life, close quote. DC Leaks also claimed to be, quote, launched by the American hacktivists who respect and appreciate freedom of speech, human rights, and government of the people, close quote. The committee report includes a snapshot of the news release of DC Leaks. It reads, quote, DC Leaks is a new-level project aimed to analyze and publish a large amount of emails from top-ranking officials and their influence agents all over the world. The project was launched by the American hacktivists who respect and appreciate freedom of speech, human rights, and government of the people. We believe that our politicians have forgotten that in a democracy, the people are the highest form of political authority, so our citizens have the right to participate in governing our nation. The authorities are just lobbying interests of Wall Street fat cats, industrial barons, and multinational corporations' representatives who swallow up all resources and subjugate all markets. We believe U.S. citizens have the right to know how domestic and foreign policies of the United States are shaped and who the real policymaker is. Our aim is to find out and tell you the truth about U.S. decision-making processes as well as about the key elements of American political life. There are no borders or censorship for DC Leaks. We are open for cooperation and ready to get valuable information, check its validity, and to make it available to the public, close quote. The website offered visitors links to different sets of hacked materials, which were indexed by sender and recipient identities and contact information. The emails initially released by DC Leaks on June 8th appeared to originate from personal email accounts of campaign employees, advisors, and volunteers, rather than the compromised DNC or DCCC networks. The GRU controlled access to document releases by password protecting the pages it wanted to restrict, and would invite select journalists or U.S. persons to preview restricted material before it became public. The site received over 1 million page views before it was shut down in March 2017. In addition to creating a false narrative about DC leaks, the GRU took a variety of steps to obscure the Russian government's identity as the website operator. For example, the GRU paid for the registration with Bitcoin it had mined and used an anonymizing service to register the site. In connection with its releases, the GRU created a corresponding DC Leaks Twitter account @DCLeaks on June 8, 2016. In doing so, the GRU hid itself behind U.S.-based proxies. The Twitter account was registered under the Gmail address dcleaksproject@gmail.com and from an IP address that resolved to a U.S. web hosting company based in Williamsville, New York. In keeping with broader attempts to avoid attribution, the GRU used Polish and Ukrainian phone numbers. The GRU used the DC Leaks account to communicate privately with targeted individuals and organizations. From June 14, 2016 to November 8, 2016, committee analysis of the DC Leaks Twitter account shows that it sent 259 direct messages to other Twitter accounts, including WikiLeaks and Guccifer 2.0, as further discussed infra. Also on June 8, 2016, the GRU used a pre-existing Facebook account under the name Alice Donovan to create a DC Leaks Facebook page. The DC Leaks Facebook page was used to promote products on the DC Leaks website, along with other personas that purported to be administrators of the DC Leaks site, like the Donovan persona. These additional administrator personas included Richard Gingrey and Jason Scott. The first activity associated with the DC Leaks Facebook page occurred on June 8th with the posting of hacked private correspondence involving NATO's approach to Russia and a link to DC Leaks' website. On June 14th, the DC Leaks page posted for the first time about stolen DNC documents with a link to the DC Leaks website. Quote, "Check restricted documents leaked from Hillary Clinton's presidential campaign staff." Close quote. This was the same day that the Washington Post first reported the Russian government's suspected hack of the DNC. The GRU posted additional materials to the DC Leaks Facebook page on June 14, 2016, July 11, 2016, August 3, 2016, and September 5th, 15th, 22nd, and 30th, 2016, which included, quote, status updates, close quote, and, quote, shares, close quote, of existing media. The Facebook page itself did not appear to generate significant activity on the platform. 831 engagements across all posts, suggesting that the GRU was either not well postured to or did not focus on distributing the hacked documents through Facebook. In a limited way, the GRU tried to bolster the DC Leaks Facebook page with other more established GRU personas. The use of these additional personas was likely intended to generate a broader audience and lend an aura of credibility to the DC Leaks entity. However, technical information demonstrates that the accounts were all controlled by the GRU. For example, on multiple occasions, the GRU used the same IP address to log into the different administrator accounts for DC Leaks on the same day, within minutes or hours. The individual administrator accounts used to manage the DC Leaks Facebook page were created more than a year prior to the creation of the DC Leaks page. The Donovan and Gingrey accounts were both registered on January 13, 2015, from the same IP address, redacted. Donovan at 11:27:58 UTC and Gingrey at 11:03:54 UTC. The Scott account was registered on February 2, 2015, using IP address redacted, which was also used to log into the Gingrey account that same day and the Donovan account several days earlier. All three administrator accounts displayed significant activity, including public postings and private messaging, well before the GRU created the DC Leaks Facebook page. For instance, committee analysis of messaging metadata indicates that the Donovan account engaged in hundreds of chat threads with other individual users and groups sending almost 1,500 private messages. The GRU caused some of the administrator accounts to communicate with each other. For example, on March 3, 2015, the Donovan persona sent a private message to the Scott persona. It is not clear why the GRU chose to do this. Redacted. The GRU used additional Facebook personas connected to other GRU influence operations to support the DC Leaks campaign. The GRU used one particularly active persona, quote, Steve Wanders, close quote, to communicate with journalists on behalf of DC Leaks, as described infra. Redacted. Notably, the Alice Donovan persona began communicating with the Michael Waters persona in February 2015, and the two accounts continued to communicate until July 12, 2016, after DC Leaks went live. Redacted. The GRU also leveraged some of these connections as social engineering techniques to gain access to other social media groups. For example, redacted. Despite the GRU's attempts to legitimize the DC Leaks personas and obfuscate Russian involvement, additional technical information linked the DC Leaks site to the GRU and its other interference efforts. For example, redacted. The GRU operated the DC Leaks Twitter account at DC Leaks from the same computer it used for other interference efforts, including the Twitter account at Baltimore is Where, which encouraged, quote, a flash mob, close quote, and posting of images to oppose Clinton. The GRU paid for the DCLeaks.com domain using a cryptocurrency account that was also used to lease a virtual private server. That virtual private server was registered with an email address that the GRU also used to obtain the account at the URL shortening service behind the spearphishing links.